All right, we're back, everybody, on this Thursday night on OpenLine as we talk about the East Bank redevelopment and what the community thinks about these plans. And I will say, guys, the number of meetings, I wrote down here somewhere, I think it's February of last year, around there, and the last meeting that I saw was April 11th. Are there any more of these planned? I mean, there's been, what, 20 or more community meetings where you go out and get input from residents.
Mm-hmm. Well, Stand Up is committed, and all of its partners are committed to continuing to engage the public on an ongoing basis, whether it's around, the community benefit agreement negotiations around River Chase or around the East Bank development. So we're never going to stop doing that. The city's planning department had, its sort of series of community meetings, and really one of the things that it's important for the city to be directly engaging the public, but we also want to make sure that they're doing so in a way that's actually engaging the whole community.
Right.
We attended several of those meetings, and you would see more realtors and developer representatives and contractors at those things than you would see ordinary working class people.
Right.
Sometimes they were held in the middle of the day at a relatively inaccessible location, and things like that. And so
the details matter.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
That's right. Totally.
Time of day, location, how you're getting the word out, maybe using, getting to congregations in certain areas, especially in Nashville, where we know the systemic issues that we've had for decades really coming to light now. The interstate, cutting off vibrant North Nashville and Jefferson Street. The banks for years with their map of don't give loans here in this area, and just all these barriers that have been set up. So same thing with something like this. Where in the past maybe we held meetings, a couple of them,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But so it is important. And as you look at this whole, tell me a little bit about how this whole plan got started, this East Bank redevelopment. It's something as you look at maps and you hear, we got more details this week about the potential stadium, what it might look like a little farther east of the current site, and then all the development around it to kind of build, and then a potential new bridge connector. I mean, this is big stuff. It's going to take a long time, but it can't just be benefiting a certain group of people.
Absolutely.
It's gotta have a balance.
Right, and I think, as far as the thinking around, doing something around the East Bank, I know, back in 2007 when I was just a wee young lad, I got to work on Mayor Carl Dean's first mayoral campaign, and that was a topic of conversation all the way back then, people,
even with the Music City Center, trying to get that passed, which I believe is one of the, when that was passed and, when it went up, the size and scale, I mean, we'd seen drawings and heard about the mayor saying, if we're going to do this, we got to do it big. And, it was a big, should we spend the money? Well, obviously, it was a success. Pandemic, didn't help, but the hotel, now there's cranes everywhere. But even back then, East Bank was
it was
a consideration.
And at that point, the stadium was barely even 10 years old at that point, if even that old. And so, but people recognized that the sea of parking lots around there could have been put to a better use. And, so it's something that's been on people's minds, I think, for a long time, at least among the decision makers of the city. But now that we're getting sort of closer to the execution point, now you've got developers flocking in and going to neighbors in some of these adjacent neighborhoods and saying, hey, we'll pay you, cash for your house. And, one thing that we'd like to tell anybody that's watching this that lives near the East Bank is, if somebody's approaching you about buying your house from you, go get a realtor. Don't take the first offer that's made to you, because I guarantee you they're making an offer that they're going to profit off of that's more than less than what you deserve. So that's one thing we wanted to make sure to tell folks. But this has been something that's a long time coming, and obviously even with the way that the plans for the stadium have been rolled out, there were a lot of conversations happening behind closed doors before this whole thing was rolled out to the public, and that's not something that we find to be appropriate at all. When we're talking about spending taxpayer dollars, then the whole base of taxpayers, the whole base of residents in our community should be engaged
and transparent.
That's right.
The process, right? So I'm looking at the map here, and when you think about the East Bank, not just Nissan Stadium. To the north, you have some industrial storage. I don't know if it's petroleum, fuel tanks that I remember in the flood were underwater. Farther up, you've now got the big Oracle development that is about to go up with a pedestrian bridge over, I think it's north of Jefferson Street, over to Germantown. So this section we're talking about, from, if you cross the Jefferson Street Bridge, there is a sliver along going south past the stadium and around all the way to the I-24 bridge, which includes, yes, the scrapyard that everyone talks about, which is, you know, privately owned, and the owner for years has said, no, we're fine. One of the reasons that I heard, a great video here, you know, they have great access to the river, which they need for transporting materials in and out. And everyone says, well, it's an eyesore. Perhaps, but that's one issue along this. What else? I mean, this is pretty bold. It says it's an opportunity to create the next great neighborhood in the heart of the city. Part of our city could become a neighborhood reclaimed for all Nashvillians to enjoy, with a public green along the riverfront for pedestrians and bicyclists, a boulevard providing multimodal transit access, places for residents to live and work. Big vision, big words, sounds good, but obviously implementing something like that takes a lot of time and study, right?
And money.
Oh, yes.
But just reconfigure what you just said. Who is that gearing towards? That is not gearing towards the people that's coming from poverty-stricken areas. That is not gearing towards anybody who's been on Section 8 or who's grew up on welfare and things of that nature. When we're talking about the new Nashville, they're forgetting about the people who brought Nashville to where it's at right now.
Right. People on fixed incomes.
People on fixed incomes. You got your teachers. You got normal teachers. Teachers don't make that much money.
Right.
You're pushing them out of the affordable ranges because guess what? They can't afford to live in these apartments around here right now.
My brother lives in Manhattan, and years ago he saw this happen there, where lower income people who held maybe service jobs, housekeepers, nannies, anything like that, you know, not at huge salary, they lived in areas of Manhattan where they could afford to live. He says no longer. The entire island of Manhattan has just gotten so expensive that now these folks are living way out the Bronx, Yonkers, you know, Queens, and they have to now. The people who hire them have to pay even more because they're paying for transportation costs. And, you know, this same thing's happening. It seems like this, the radius around Nashville, it's pushing farther and farther out.
Right.
Because I'm looking at the average cost of rent, even in places like Bellevue, Antioch, it's all going up.
Oh yeah, and at least they've got at least in New York, they've got a robust public transit system to, you know, affordably move people from the outer areas, the outer boroughs into the center. But, you know, the folks that my union represents at Vanderbilt, you know, if you look at a map of where our members lived, you know, sort of in the early 2000s, a lot of them lived relatively close to the university. You know, parts of South Nashville there around Wedgwood, you know, were places where a lot of working class people lived. And now they're all getting pushed out into Antioch, Madison, Murfreesboro, Smyrna, and they don't have the transit system that gets them back in there. And, you know, and to your point about rents as well, you know, if you, in the past, I think 5 or 6, somebody can fact check me on this, but the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in, I'll say 2016, was about $1,000 a month in the metro statistical area. So that's including Murfreesboro and sort of the surrounding areas. It's $1,200 now, right? Which is a 20% increase in 5 years, while wages have not kept up.
It's going up even farther.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. We know it's going up even farther.
Especially as you get closer to the urban core.
Totally.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and just outside the urban core are so many neighborhoods, you know, older neighborhoods that are essential to, you know, so many people. It's where they grew up, it's their identity. Culturally, it's where we have a diverse population, and yet so many people are, this gentrification issue is, it's happening everywhere, even on the East Bank. You know, I think it's Davidson Street down a little farther. The tall and skinnies are going up. Nice view of the river. But so tell me a little bit, guys, and we do have a caller on hold. I think William. We're going to get to you in just a moment. Be patient. Just overall, what the study was about, how it was initiated, how it developed, the input kind of from A to where we are now. Either one of you.
Okay. You want to take it?
Sure. Well, you know, the formal East Bank study was something that was done by the Metro Planning Department, right? And that was the series of meetings and sort of committee meetings and things like that we've had some critique of, you know. And so what we've done with the report that we put out is sort of an alternative version of the same study, right? Talking to residents who actually live in the area, working class people, and finding out what they want to see rather than just finding out what developers want to see. But it's been, you know, it's been a process of a couple years now, and will ultimately result in, you know, the planning department, you know, issuing, like the thing they put out just a couple days ago about the
potential bridge,
and the arterial street, you know. So ultimately they'll come up with a plan to be rezoned by the council to, you know, build the infrastructure around which this development will happen. So it's, you know, this is the beginning of a probably at least a decades-long process, you know. But it's a multifaceted thing for sure.
Are you pleased with this process so far? Because I know I lived in Houston for a long time. I know the Atlanta story. There's so many stories where don't do what we did. And there's always a rush, you know, developers, whoever, who, you know, this is their livelihood and they just want to come in and, you know, and do it real quickly. But this seems to really be an intentional process. Has there been pushback? How has, you know, people get impatient?
So, Rory,
did I hit on something?
Yeah, you hit on something real tough. Honestly, it is a sticky situation. Like I told you earlier before, the people in the city, we talk to the people in the city. We have talked to, like you said, these behind the closed door deals that developers are doing and things of that nature. We have talked to the people in the East Bank area, and we got feedback from them. These developers are not going out there talking to you, me, or David. You know, they just making decisions on their own and saying, hey, the people in the East Nashville area are cool with what we put out there. But if you go actually talk to the people that actually live in those areas, they'll tell you what they really want.
Yeah, and that's not, it's homeowners, it's business owners, it's, you know,
it's everybody.
And it's
city services for that area, the whole.
That's right. And it's renters too, right? Like it's there are people whose rents are going to get jacked up as a result of this as well. And, you know, the other thing too is that too often, you know, there will be a process of coming up with what the plan is going to be. Again, I think the Titan Stadium is a great example of this, where suddenly there's like rumors of the Titan Stadium, and then it's like, oh, this is happening right now and we got to vote on it tomorrow, right? Yeah. And, you know, this sort of hurry up, or really the opposite of a hurry up and wait, right? It's there's nothing and then everything's happening all at once, and if there's such urgency to it, and if we don't take this vote right now, everything's going to fall apart. You know, that's not a good way of governing. That's a good way to get what you want if you're a developer, but it's not a good way to govern a city, and that's been what we've experienced too much.
William, hang on. We're going to get to your call first thing right after this break, and we're going to dive into more details. Stay with us.